Welcome to the Evidence Team presentation. By the end of the session today, you will have had an introduction to the Evidence Team and our services, tips on searching for medical information and using search engines, an update on the Knowledge Network and new resources, and an introduction to the new NHS Guidelines app. Here are a number of areas that the Evidence Team are responsible for, and I'll give you some more information on each of these sections. If you want to find out more about any of the information that's given today, you can contact the Evidence Team on libraries@lanarkshire.scot.nhs.uk. First of all, training. The library team offer a number of training courses covering topics such as searching, critical appraisal, the knowledge network, and health literacy. All of these areas can be bespoke to what you need. They can be specific to your team or it can be delivered in general. Given how we deliver training now, most of this will be online, but some training can still be delivered in person. And again, just speak to the team if you would like any of this. The Evidence Team are also responsible for the management of the libraries throughout NHS Lanarkshire, and the libraries provide all of the services typical that you'll be looking for, including access to IT, ebooks, iPads, books and journals. The library will also help you order items that you need through the Knowledge Network or get items from other health boards if required. We are also responsible and give copyright advice. Amanda Minns, myself, I'm responsible for copyright within the board and I am your copyright champion. We provide an online service that you can submit your copyright queries to. I'll talk a little bit about that later on, but that's an online service and you can get copyright advice from the team as and when needed. The areas that most people ask for copyright advice is usually around the use of images, the use of videos and music, and the reuse of clinical tools. And again, if we don't have an existing license for something, we can certainly help you speak to authors or publishers to get permission if you need it for items that belong to someone else. Another part of the Evidence Team's responsibilities is standards and guidelines. I'll talk to you in a little bit further detail later in the presentation about the NHS Lanarkshire Guidelines app, but we are responsible for standards throughout the board. This includes producing information on the latest health technologies, helping with NICE and SIGN guidelines, and helping with the NHS Lanarkshire guidelines and the management of these online. E-updates is also an important area for the team, and we produce these regularly with teams. These e-updates, or current awareness bulletins as they're also known, cover a variety of topics that may be of interest to you. These are all stored on the Knowledge Network, and along with NHS Lanarkshire's e-updates and current awareness bulletins, the Knowledge Network also holds current awareness bulletins from many of the other boards around NHS Scotland. And again, by accessing them through the Knowledge Network, you can get access to all of these as well. So you don't need to be a member of that board to get that information. I will come back to literature searches in a few moments, but the last area I want to talk about here is a system called the Clinical Knowledge Publisher, or CKP. This is an online piece of software that allows staff to design online pathways in a visual format. Again, this is run as a national system through NES Knowledge Services. And if you type Clinical Knowledge Publisher into Firstport, you'll see a page that will take you to the National Library, which holds all of the pathways that are available in NHS Scotland. And again, if you're interested in using the software, you'd like to use it for your own pathways, design something for patients, that's some of the most popular uses that we have for it, you can contact the Evidence Team and they will help you. I'm going to now move on to describing the literature searches and the different types that we do. So, before I do that, first of all, I'd like to talk about how we provide this information to you and what the service is about. So the Evidence Team and how it runs looks at 3 different areas. And our model for finding evidence is just in time, just enough, and just for me. So we're aware that most staff come to us now and they're usually quite overwhelmed with how information is provided. There's too much printed information. People get lots and lots of emails. They get lots and lots of alerts for new things that have been published, new information, new evidence. So what we try to do is take the evidence from research, expectations, values of the patient, along with your own health professional knowledge and experience, And in the middle, that gives us the evidence-based medicine, and that is what we're here to help you deliver. So that top area, evidence from research, is what the evidence team are specialised in looking at for you, and they do that by providing an excellent literature search service. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that now. This visual represents the different layers of literature searching that you can get. So the basic literature search standard is 3 days, and that comes into us on a whole variety of topics, from very, very simple things. So, for example, tell me everything, the latest research on Lyme disease, or very complex searches looking at very specific guidelines or information on a particular topic. If someone is looking for information to do with a patient that's being treated at the moment, we would suggest they pick the rapid search, and this is a 24-hour turnaround. And this search looks at guidelines and particular standards in relation to a very, very specific part of care. So what is the latest guideline treatment for a particular area? So this is not looking for primary research. This is really looking for just guidelines and standards. So it's not looking for opinions. It's not looking in primary research journals. We also have search and summary and search and synthesis services at this next level, and these are very popular. So these are often asked for after the basic literature search. So somebody will ask us at that very bottom of the triangle for a basic search, and then they'll want something else done with that. So our search and summary will give you a list of search results in an area, and we'll table that information and make sure that all the relevant points are pulled out. And that's the search and synthesis. A search and summary pulls all that information out in a table format and also gives you a narrative around particular clinical questions that you're trying to find the answer to when you've asked for your search. So they're slightly different. The search and synthesis is a lot quicker, but they both fall under that banner of search and summary. A systematic review is the top level, and while these are asked for, they are quite unusual. And this is normally when a team or a department needs to find all the information they possibly can on a given topic, usually before publishing or changing, introducing a piece of care that's different or new to the service. This can take quite a long time depending on the parameters agreed, and when we do a systematic review, that must be agreed with the most senior person within the department, because it usually requires a member of the evidence team to be attached to the clinical team for a short period of time, and it requires quite a lot of interaction. So it can be done, but it is just a bit more unusual and can take quite a significant length of time to complete. Searching services. This is how you request any of the services I've spoken about. So from the literature searching to the copyright searching. So eHelp is the online system that you'll find on Firstport. And as you see, I've logged in there and given you a little screenshot of what it looks like here. And you can go into this area, and what you want to do is pick the Request It area. And from that, you'll get a section that says Knowledge Services. And from Knowledge Services, you can then select the service you're looking for, whether that's a basic literature search or whether that's a copyright research. You can, of course, send your request in by email, or you can talk to staff about your request before you submit it, but we will always ask you to go back and make sure it's submitted on this system, and that allows us to communicate with you online, and it also allows you to track the ticket as well, and for us to give you updates on the progress of the request that you've asked for. So this is what it looks like when you go into request, and as I see, you get the basic services that we've just spoken about. The next thing I want to look at is how you look for medical information. Normally, I would be standing in a room and we would have a really usually quite interactive conversation around how people look for things, but I'm just going to talk you through some of the images on the screen. So the first thing we want to look at is how you find medical information, and I'm going to make some assumptions at this point. So the first one is phone. The majority of people have a smartphone now, and will look for huge amounts of information on that. They'll probably have lots and lots of apps downloaded, some that are fun, some games, some that are related to their job, some that might be related to a hobby. But huge amounts of information is now found on the phone. And Google there is there to represent the search engines that you might use. And I've also included a really old-fashioned there, one, the Y in the bottom right-hand corner. This is Yahoo, which was a search engine back in the day. It's still a search engine now, but most people don't use it, I would say. Most people default to Google, which is okay in itself. But we'll come a little bit on to how successful that is in terms of medical searching. And the stethoscope there is representing your colleagues. So huge amounts of information that we get, no matter what our profession, comes from those that we work with, those that are around us. We're asking the experts that we come into contact with day to day. And of course, in the bottom left-hand corner, this represents the libraries. So there are still traditional books and journals. Huge amounts of these are now electronic, and that just represents both of those, whether you come physically into the libraries within NHS Lanarkshire or you access the library service electronically. So how do you look for your medical information? And at this point, normally I would be asking you to tell me, but I'm going to make an assumption that most people Google their health information. They may look at one or two databases, maybe something like PubMed. They might look at Ovid. But if they're not sure, often they just Google information. And they usually look at the results on the first one, maybe 2 pages. And they definitely don't do what I would do, which is to double search. So search for something on Google and then pick a completely different search engine and repeat the same search and make a comparison of the results we're getting, just to make sure that we are getting and covering all the results, because no search engine covers all of the web. No search engine can possibly look at everything that is there. And again, if you're just doing a bit of shopping online, that's not a huge deal. But if you're looking for independent, well-established clinical or medical information, that can start to become a bit of a problem. What is the problems with searching for medical information online, particularly through a search engine like Google, which is there to search everything? So the first thing we've got to think around is the quality. Think back yourself to any searches you've ever done on Google. Did you get what you were looking for? Was there high quality information? Did you get what you were expecting? And there are often two different types of searches that people do. So the first one is, I'm searching for something I already know exists. I just need to find it. So that could be a NICE or a sign guideline. I know I'm looking for a sign guideline. I just can't quite remember what the sign website address is. So I'm just going to type it in. And hopefully Google is very good at that kind of thing and it already comes up with it. But what you might be looking for is information, clinical information on a topic where you actually don't know the answer. You don't know if a guideline exists. So there we have to consider how Google returns information to us. And Google returns information on popularity. So not on accuracy, not on relevancy, but on popularity. So it returns to you the information that everybody else has already looked at. Again, that can be quite useful, but it can be quite limiting. One of the other issues with using a non-specific medical database for searching is quantity. We'll be overwhelmed with searches and information. So most of you, if you're typical searchers, will not look past the first couple of pages, despite the fact that Google normally returns hundreds of thousands, if not millions of hits for something. Accuracy. This is something that all web engines have issues with. So what search engines like Google and Yahoo and Bing are not particularly good at is really filtering out what is inaccurate. It looks for a word, it matches that word to your search, and it returns it. So it really doesn't filter out whether somebody just mentions that word very briefly or mentions that word as a major part of the piece of work that it's returning to. It's not very good at that, which is why you get a lot of irrelevant or inaccurate information. It's also not particularly good at distinguishing between plurals and singular. It's not very good at distinguishing between local, national and international information. And there usually are inherent problems with time and dates. I mean, there are limits within all search engines for date. And you don't want information returned older than a particular year. That often doesn't work correctly because Google isn't very good at distinguishing when something was written to when something was uploaded to maybe when something was peer reviewed. So what date, what time are we talking about? So it can be very difficult to pin that down. So these are just some things to think about when you're looking for clinical information and you think, where is the best place to look for this? It's probably not Google unless you're Googling for something you already know exists and you already know will be correct when it gets returned to you. Google Scholar is excellent, and this returns a lot of published information within journals and books online. So if you are going to use a search engine like Google or something similar, try to use the Scholar version. So Google Scholar, it's very good for simple, broad, generalised health searching. It's not good for detail. It's good where you already know the item you're looking for. So we've already spoken about that. Where is it limited? It's not comprehensive. Google covers anything between 5 and 15% of the internet in total. So it doesn't cover everything that people think. In terms of its other limits, it can't always easily distinguish between author, affiliation. So maybe you're looking for something that all staff in NHS Lanarkshire have published. Can't really do that. It's not good at geographical location. It's not good at distinguishing between titles and headings and keywords. And as I've already spoken about, year of publication is very unreliable. It can have real issues looking for the year of publication and differentiate between page and volume numbers. But what you are getting now on Google Scholar is links to articles on the Knowledge Network, and this can be quite useful. So you can link straight through to the Knowledge Network, which will hold all of the electronic subscriptions for NHS Scotland. So that is very useful. Something like PubMed, which is very popular with staff, again, is an excellent citation database. And it does hold a very, very small amount of full text articles, but they're very limited. So mostly people who are looking at that are just looking for a relevant citation that they can include in a piece of research or a piece of work. But then they will have to go to a separate database to then find the full text. So to save you a bit of time, using something like the Knowledge Network cuts all that out because it pools all the subscriptions that NHS Scotland have together and it returns what's full text to you, and you can see if you have to order it if that subscription isn't available in NHS Scotland. The Knowledge Network. So where do you search? So you'll see here the front page of the Knowledge Network, and the area that you want to look in is library search. So it's very basic. It's like a Google search, and you can look for that information. You can type in exactly what you're looking for, and it will return a list of articles that are relevant to you. It will also return ebooks, it will return guidelines, it will return a huge range of information, and it will tell you what that information is and what category that information falls into. You do need an Athens password to access this. So if you've had one as a student, you should try to get one as a member of staff as well, because you will have slightly different access to different subscribed resources. You can run 2 Athens passwords if you work in multiple health boards, but if you have a main health board, try to just use that Athens password. If you don't know what your Athens password is, or your username if you've forgotten, again, just use the email address at the very end. It is the Knowledge Services team with an evidence that will reset that for you. This is what the results look like when you search for something. So we've just looked for eHealth and we've looked for everything. So on the left-hand side, you can see how your search results are reviewed. You can refine them here as well. You can look for peer-reviewed journals. You can look for different types, whether it's a newspaper article, text resource, electronic book. You can also look for different libraries as well. You will see here on the left-hand side that a lot of libraries from NHS Scotland are listed here. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the resources themselves. And if it's highlighted in blue, then that is the hyperlink to the full text. And it tells you underneath if the full text is available or if there's online access. Okay, and if you click in one of those areas, you can see a bit more information. So here we've looked for some books. You can see you can refine your search at this point. You can look for everything. You can limit it to articles, to books, to electronic books, and to e-journals. So there's lots of options here. You can pin things, you can save it to a folder, you can export that to a reference system such as RefWorks. There's lots of things you can do here to keep track of your information. Again, just letting you see where you can access full text. You just click these areas here and that will take you to the full text results. Again, this is what it looks like for books and ebooks. There's lots and lots of these available now, far more than there ever has before. So if you prefer an electronic book or the print copy of something is out, this is definitely worth having a look at to see if there's an electronic version available. Lean Library is a new service that we have for you, and this is trying to make it easy for you to access resources. So this allows you to access full text journals from Google Scholar, linked to NHS Scotland journals. You can access your BMJ case reports for NHS staff in Scotland. You do need a little NHS board fellowship code to do that, and again, the evidence team can give you that. And the plugin for full text helps you navigate paywalls and blocks the full text. So sometimes you can access things through Google Scholar and you'll get straight there. But what Google isn't very good at doing is getting past those paywalls and blocks that some suppliers put in. You know, they want extra logins, they want you to sign up to things. So the Lean plugin there, which has been provided to you by Knowledge Services, can help you push past that. Again, if you need help downloading this onto your phone or to your laptop, the library team can help you. And it really does make the process of looking for online information a lot quicker. And it's worth speaking to the team to make sure that you have that downloaded on your phone and onto your laptops. What else can you do on the Knowledge Network? You can look for all sorts of things. There's huge amounts of guidelines, protocols, there's evidence summaries that are there as well. There's a huge section of information called point of care resources. Evidence-informed practice. You need to search for these individually, and that's just how search works in it, but you can find a lot of information there that will help you, particularly point of care. This does exactly what it says on the tin. It gives you resources that are designed to help you at the point of care that you're caring for a patient. It's not going to return to you lots and lots of information on primary research. It's not going to return to you opinion pieces or posters from conferences. It's going to take all that information out and ensure that you're really just getting point of care and what you need at that moment. You will probably be aware of many of the databases, or the most popular databases that are used, but there are hundreds of databases on the Knowledge Network, and you probably stick to the same few. So Ovid Medline, PsycInfo, Embase, CINAHL, these are all the really major popular ones. But as you see here, the databases are sorted into core areas, and from those areas you can then get further. So if you are looking at this information, you need to find something that's maybe not typical to your area or a little bit different. It's worth checking to see if there's a database that actually covers information within that area. So particularly around maybe management or estates and facilities. These are very, very useful areas that often all members of staff need to have some knowledge about, particularly if they're caring for a team of people. So these can be very useful for you as well. There are portals and topics. You can find these on, again, a whole host of information. You can search for them by name or topic area. And there's information for patients there. There's a whole learning section. There's a lot about person-centred care, community healthcare, and so forth. So definitely worth taking some time to explore the resources. Here's the current awareness section I spoke about a little bit earlier. So this is how you keep up to date. You'll find the full list of bulletins under the bulletin section, and this is current awareness topics from all the boards right across NHS Scotland, and you can sign up and you can receive any of them. So you don't need to just sign up to the ones that are available on your board. You can set up alerts from your favourite journals and databases so that these are returned to you on a regular basis as well. And there's also some help there for managing references, citation management, RefWorks, and bookmarking. Lots and lots of tools there designed to help you manage lots of information and keeping that information in a system that isn't overwhelming. I want to talk to you now a little bit about Right Decisions. Right Decisions is the platform we use for our NHS Lanarkshire Guidelines app. This app is new and was developed at the start of the COVID pandemic in March to May last year, and it was designed as an app to hold all of the COVID guidelines that we had at the time. And you'll be aware that those guidelines changed sometimes daily, often weekly, and it was quickly recognised that we needed one place to ensure that that information was kept up to date, and we had one place to find that information. While that was set up, we always had a much bigger idea in mind that once past the pandemic, this app and website that goes along with it would change and it would become the NHS Lanarkshire Guidelines app. And that work had been going on for quite some time in the board anyway. So now you will find if you have an NHS Lanarkshire device or your own device, you can go into the App Store or Google Play, and you can download NHSL guidelines, and that will take you to the guidelines app that we have. This is a little screenshot of what it looks like, and this is being updated all the time. So maybe even a little bit different after this presentation. The team who are doing this add guidelines in daily. They have a roadmap of the priorities that they'll put in through the next 6 months to a year, which includes the adult formulary. They've already added in huge amounts of information on antimicrobial, medical scores and calculators, as well as a number of referral pathways. And of course, the review of all the COVID-19 guidelines that were added last year. This is the one place in NHS Lanarkshire you should go to for guidelines. You will notice gaps because this is very much a work in progress. So if you are responsible for guidelines or you've written guidelines that are used in the board and you want to have that guideline on here, please do get in touch and the team will be able to talk you through how to do that. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this presentation. I just wanted to remind you that hopefully you've seen that all the services that we offer you do help us deliver our motto that just in time, just enough, and just for me. The library service, the guidelines team, the standards team, copyright information, online training, they're all designed to help you and to make your job a little bit easier. So if we can help you manage the information that you need for your patients or for your own training and education, please do get in touch. That one email address you can use for any queries and any questions. Thank you very much for your attention.